Well, I'm kind of emotionally exhausted already. Wow. He said, yeah. Oh, yeah, let's do that. Yes. And then God just moved just in your singing and just so I'm like, all right, I got to get everybody back in, get everybody back in gear and what I want to share today. Daniel, can you hand me my little prop right there? All right. This is a basketball, and in my hands, it's just a basketball, okay? But in the hands of some of these college players I've seen the past few nights, they can bust a bracket. They can create history. They can make history. They do some incredible shots, and they're going to lead some people. Cinderella stories and stuff like this. And in the pros and the NBA, they do something. They could win the MVP and they can win championships with this ball. Not me. It's a ball. It's the same like with a golf club. A golf club in my hands is dangerous. If you live anywhere near a golf course, or if you're anywhere in front of me or beside of me, I'm gonna hit the ball, but it's liable to hit something or somebody. But in the hands of, say, Tiger Woods, or Phil Mickelson, or Rory McIlroy, or Jordan Spieth, or Shane Benfield. See, how about that? In those hands, right? I mean, yeah, they do some incredible things with a golf club, okay? And then now with a paintbrush. Now, the paintbrush, you put a paintbrush in my hand. I can do some pretty decent things with a paintbrush, but in hands of a Picasso or a Rembrandt, they're priceless works of art. So what is it? How is it that the same thing has so many different, dramatically different results? How is the same thing? It comes down to who's holding it and how they use it. Who's holding it and how they use it. Last week we started this series, The Grave Robber, and we're looking at some of the miracles or the signs of Jesus. And the first one we looked at last week was turning the water into wine, and how he did that, and this sign he used to reveal to his disciples and reveal to us who he is. And that's one of the differences in these Gospels between the Gospel of John and the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, is that John refers to everything Jesus did as signs. And he did this for a purpose. And he told us at the end of his letter in John chapter 20, he told us that now Jesus did many other signs in the presence of the disciples, which are not written in this book. Now the other ones you can read forever, but in this book they're not included. But these, the ones I've included, I've written these so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, so that you may believe that Jesus is the Son of God, and that by believing this, you may have life in his name. That by believing in Jesus because of these signs that I share with you, then you would have eternal life. John's whole purpose for this letter. And all through his letter, there's a theme, and we discussed it last week. This theme is, don't seek miracles, follow Jesus. Don't go after the miracles. Don't be straining so hard and looking for in this. No, just follow Jesus. Because if we follow him long enough, if we follow him close enough, and stay with him, he'll reveal who he is to us, just like he did to his disciples with the miracles, these signs. Recap. Last week, we had the wedding feast, and Jesus' first sign was turning the water into wine. His second sign was healing a man's dying son without the son being there. He was miles away. His third sign was the healing a crippled man who'd been crippled from birth. He'd been crippled for 38 years, and he did it on the Sabbath. And this didn't set too well with any of the religious leaders at that time, because Jesus did something on the Sabbath, and he broke some of their rules and their regulations. And it's really interesting, because Jesus healed this man on the Sabbath, that these religious leaders now are planning on how they can kill Jesus. And then we get to the fourth sign that I want to share with you today. And this is very familiar with many of us if you grew up in church at all, because this one sign, this one miracle is recorded in all four Gospels. It's in all four Gospels. They all got their own point of view on it, but it's all recorded in all these four Gospels. It's when Jesus fed 5,000 men and their families. So that's all the men that were there, all the husbands that were there with their wives and their children, and all the single ladies. All the single ladies, they were all, they just flashbacks just come to me, and it's like, oh, please don't ever play that video again. Don't want to hear that song. But, they were all, you see, you try to add it all up, and it's somewhere they estimate around 20,000 people. So here's what we're going to look at the sign today, and it's in chapter 6. John chapter 6 starts in the very first verse, and it says, after this, after healing this crippled man, he'd been crippled for 38 years, and after dealing with the religious leaders and their plot to get after him, and his discussions with them about the Sabbath and what the Sabbath was really for, after this, Jesus went away. He had enough of these people, and he went away to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias. And what that means is when you get to the other side of the sea, you come into a town called Tiberias, and to those people over there is the Sea of Tiberias. But over here at Galilee is the Sea of Galilee. It's like Lake Norman, depending on, or High Rock Lake. And it depends on if it's bathing, if it's a lake, if it's a pond, if it's a river. It depends on which side of you live on it, I guess. But it's called, and a large crowd was following him. See, the religious leaders are trying to kill him, and the whole time, this large crowd keeps growing, keeps getting bigger because they want to see another sign. They've seen what Jesus has done, and they want to see another sign, and so they're following him because they had seen the signs that he was doing on the sick. Jesus went up on the mountain, and there he sat down with his disciples. Now, the Passover, this is the Feast of the Jews, and they celebrate this every year to remind them that God rescued them from slavery out of Egypt. They celebrate this every year. The Feast of the Jews was at hand. Lifting up his eyes then and seeing that a large crowd was coming toward him, Jesus said to Philip, "Where are we to buy bread so that these people may eat?" He's asking Philip, where can we get some? And some commentators say that where they were at right now, Philip's hometown was only just a few miles away. So Philip would know where all the Circle K's were, where all the food lines were. He would know where everything is. So that's why Jesus asked him. He said this to test him. And I like this part right here always kind of confuses me. For he himself, Jesus, knew what he would do. So is that Philip, that Jesus knew how Philip was going to take care of this, or Jesus knew how he was going to take care of this? It kind of gives me a little, I wonder what Jesus is thinking right here. But it's kind of like, what if he looks at us and presents us with something, does he already know what he's going to do through us, or is he waiting to see what we're going to do, but he already knows what we're going to do? See, that's just Jesus and what can we do? And the first thing I learned when I was reading through here is that, and I'm guilty of this too, but we need to tell each other, don't focus on your limited ability. Don't focus on that. We do it all the time. I mean, one of the reasons we can't see miracles, or we can't understand miracles, or recognize miracles in our life is because we spend too much time focusing on our inability, on the things that we can't do, rather than God's abilities in our life. We get hung up on these inabilities. So what I want, just for a little test right now, just answer this in your mind. You don't have to raise your hand. You don't have to shout out an answer, but just answer this in your mind. If money were not an issue at all, if you didn't have to worry about money at all, you had everything that you needed financially, and you had all the talent that you would need and all the ability that you could do just about anything you wanted to do, what one thing would you do for someone else? Money's not an issue. You've got the talent, you've got the ability. What is one thing that you would do for someone else? That's how we should think. That's how we should think when it comes to serving God. When God presents something to us, when God reveals something to us, or shares something, or speaks to us to challenge us, that's how we should think. Because it's not about us and what we can do, but it's about God and what he can do. Because there's going to be times in our lives, even the life of a church, that God is going to speak to us. God is going to say something to us and tug on our hearts, and he's going to call us to do something bigger than ourselves. Something that's beyond our resources, something that's beyond our abilities. I mean, we can't afford it, and we can't accomplish it. It's out of our range. It seems just impossible. It's what I call a God-ordained dream. That God ordains something. He places it on our hearts. He places a burden on our heart, or a passion in our heart, and we can't pay for it. We can't afford it. We don't even have that ability. We've never been trained to do that, but it's just been placed on our heart, and this is how do we respond to that? Because, just think about this. This is what Jesus and Philip are dealing with right now. Jesus turns to Philip, and he's talking to him. He says, where are we to buy the bread? Where do we get the bread to feed all these people? This wasn't a question. Do you know where the food lines are? No. This was to test Philip's faith. And just place yourself there for a second. that you're with the 12 disciples and you're with Jesus, and thousands of people are gathered around this hillside, and Jesus turns to you and says, where can we get some bread for all these people? It's an impossible task. When you see this, it's just out there. And there's no way Philip is going to pull this off. This is not, and yet Jesus knows this, and still he asked Philip, how can this be done? How can we take care of these people? What impossible task is God asking you? What impossible task is God calling us to do? This is where faith comes in. This is where trust steps in. This is where we truly live out what we say we believe when we get in this situation. Here's Philip's response in verse 7. Philip answered him, 200 denarii worth of bread, which is about 2/3 of a year's income. So if you make $30,000 a year, it's $20,000. $20,000 worth of bread would not be enough for each of them to get a little. So you got to give Philip credit. He's trying to, Jesus said, how can we feed all these people? And he's like, all right, let me calculate this. Let me do some ciphering here, as they say in the old days. Let me do some ciphering and carry the one. But if he's doing it on his own, he's looking at the crowd, and he's trying to figure out how much it's going to cost. And today, it would be like we would sit here and say, okay, if I go to McDonald's and I get everything, if I give everybody something off the $1 menu, not the 2 or the 3, but the $1 menu. If I get everybody here at this hillside something off the $1 menu, that's going to be $20,000. So Philip turns to Jesus and says, it can't be done. It can't be done. I don't have the resources. I can't do this. It's going to take $20,000, and I don't have $20,000. I don't have $20,000 in my pocket. I left a debit card at the house. I just don't. And it's on the other side of the lake, the Sea of Galilee. I left it over there. I dropped it. Hopefully nobody will use it. I'm sure, fraud and all that. But I just don't. It can't be done. Don't we do the same thing sometimes? God places something on our heart, and He calls us to do something, and we immediately start calculating, trying to figure the cost, and come up with the reasons or excuses why we can't and it can't be done. I don't have the time. I don't have that ability. I don't have that much money. See, all Jesus wanted Philip to do was say that, I can't do this, but you can. I can't do this, but you can. I've watched, seen this. I know you can. I trust you. And when God calls us to do something that seems impossible, He wants us to do the same thing. I mean, it's out of our range. It's out of our resources. It's beyond our ability. He just wants us to turn to Him and say, I can't do this. This is beyond me. I don't have the ability. I can't do this. But I trust you, and I have faith enough that you can. What we usually say is, no, I can't. I don't have. I'm not that good. I can't sing. I can't get up there and I can't play the guitar. I can't lead worship. I can't teach people. I can't preach up on stage. I can't do that. I'm not that good. I'm not as good as so and so. I'm not as good as they are. And I don't have the time. I don't have the talent. I'm just a UPS driver. There's no way I could just stop doing this and just play a guitar and lead people in worship. No, I can sit at home and play there's no way I can stand up in front of people and teach the Bible. See, we forget. It's not about us. It's about God and what He can do. Let me tell you something. If God can use Moses, and he stuttered. That's why Moses said, I can't speak before Pharaoh because I stutter. If God can use Moses, if God can use Gideon, Gideon was afraid of his own shadow. He didn't prove this, God, do this, dude. I can't step out there. They'll make fun of me. No, if God can use Paul, the man who persecuted Christians, the man who hated Christians, God can use me, and God can use you. He can use all of us. We just have to get to the point where we surrender ourselves. Surrender ourselves and say to him, I can't do this, but I know you can. So God, because you can and because I have faith in you, because I trust you, use me. Use me. Send me. I'll go with you. Let's go do this. So when we look around at the needs of others in our community, when we see the needs in others, is our first response, there's nothing I can do about it? Yeah, they have a need, they have a problem, but there's nothing I can do about it. Or is our first response is, I might not be able to do a lot, but what can I do? What can I do about this because Jesus lives in me? Because of my relationship with God. What can I do? What can I do to be a part of helping in this community or helping these people or helping this family? So don't focus on your limited ability. And by all means, don't limit God by doubting his abilities. Don't limit God. I mean, look what it says in verse 8. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, there is a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. And as I'm reading through John and I'm seeing what Jesus does and his signs are revealing himself to his disciples, I'm thinking, all right, Andrew, you got it. I want to cheer him on. I want to say, come on, Andrew, you've got this. You're on the right track. I mean, you're looking at the possibilities here. You brought this little boy up here. He's got 5 loaves and 2 fish. You know that the only way this can happen, the only way all these people can be fed, it has to happen through Jesus. And so I just know that you're going to walk up to this little boy and you're going to tell Jesus, hey, Jesus, here's 5 loaves and 2 fish. Use these. Use these. I want to see. Use these and feed all these people. Perform a miracle. He's just like right there. And Ronnie, why would you think he's going to say that? Well, think about it. Just keep this in mind. Andrew has been with Jesus from the start. Andrew and Simon Peter were the first 2 disciples that Jesus selected. So Andrew has been with him. Andrew has seen the signs. He's seen all this. He saw Jesus turn the water into wine. He saw Jesus heal a man's dying son. He saw Jesus help up a man who had been crippled for 38 years at the pool of Bethesda and walk. He saw this. He was a witness. He knew what Jesus was capable of doing. But then he says that little 3-letter word. But. And it changes everything. Here's some bread and fish, but what are they for so many? Andrew falls in this trap of this is impossible. This is 5 pieces of bread and 2 fish. Not even big fish, it's just 2 fish. Crappies. Not a bass, we're talking crappies. 3-ounce crappies. And it was a little boy. He was going to have a sandwich. He limits what Jesus can do, what God can do in this. He doubts that God could do anything in this situation. He can't do anything in this circumstance. I mean, he got so close. He got so close. He knew what to do. He knew where to turn. But his faith was pushed aside by his doubt. So when you think about it that way, this is what Andrew really said. We've got these 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, but not even you can do anything with it. Not even you. That little 3-letter word, but, that's a ministry killer right there. I mean, you ask people and you speak with people about doing it, and they say, I know I should. I know I could be a part of this. I know I could be active in this. I know I could, but I just don't have time. I know I could, but maybe someone else will do it. I know, but maybe next time. That 3-letter word, but, keeps churches from being faithful to God's calling. I know what God is wanting us to do. I understand, I see the vision, I hear it, but we've never done it that way before. I know if you grew up in church, you've heard that one. You listen really close. It's always that three-letter word is right before. But we've never done it that way before. That three-letter word. But keeps us from doing the impossible with God. Do you believe in God? Yes. Do you believe in Jesus? Yes. But I can't do that. Someone once asked, if God is real, why is it we don't see the same miracles like the ones we see in the Bible? Let me clarify. God's always at work in and around us. We're not neglected. He's always right there in and around our life. He's always calling us to join him in what he's doing, even the impossible. You can look in the Old Testament and you can look in the New Testament and you can find a scripture verse and it's going to say, with God, nothing is impossible. It's in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. There's nothing that's impossible. So God's not the problem. We are. We limit God and his abilities. We just don't. We doubt that he has his abilities to do a miracle in our lives. We doubt that he could even use us to do anything for someone else. And what it really comes down to is we don't trust God like we say we do, and we don't have the faith that we say we have. So basically, we don't have the relationship with God that we say we have. Because if we really want to experience the miraculous in our life, if we really want to live out the faith that we say we have, then we got to get off our butts and trust him completely. See what I did there? Because we got too many buts in our language when we're talking with God. And not limiting him with our doubt. Remember, with God, nothing is impossible. Yet, Philip says it can't be done. Andrew says, I doubt this will make a dent in what's needed. I doubt that you could even do this, Jesus. And Jesus' response is in verse 10. Jesus said, I like that. Philip says it can't be done. Andrew says, I don't think you can. And Jesus said, have the people sit down. All right. Now there was much grass in the place, so the men sat down, about 5,000 in number. Jesus then took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to those who were seated, so also the fish, as much as they wanted. And a lot of times we'll read this, okay, Jesus set them down, and he broke the bread, and he divided out the fish, and they got all they wanted. Oh, you missed a little? He gave thanks. And think about this. You're sitting out there on a hill somewhere among 5,000, 20,000 people, and you haven't got any food in front of you, and Jesus is praying and giving thanks. I don't have anything. Think about it. It's still in Jesus' hands. So by him giving thanks before anybody got anything is reminding the people and is reminding us that God is the source of all good and needful things. We think about God and we focus on God. No matter what we have and what we don't have, we give thanks. And when they had eaten their fill, he told his disciples, gather up the leftover fragments that nothing may be lost. So they gathered them up and filled 12 baskets with fragments from the 5 barley loaves left by those who had eaten. 12 baskets. Where did the baskets come from? All we had was 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Surely that little boy wasn't carrying a stackable, like, nesting baskets. And every time he picked them up, there's another one, and there's another one, and there's another one. No. I don't know where they came from, unless people were carrying baskets. But he ended up with these 12. And watch this. When the people saw the sign that he had done, they said, this is indeed the prophet who is to come into the world. This is indeed the Messiah. They believed because of the sign. So instead of us complaining about what we don't have, we should give thanks to God for what we do have. And then trust him with it. Let him do it. See, Jesus wasn't asking Philip and Andrew to feed the people. He knew they didn't have the resources. He knew Philip didn't have the resources. He knew Andrew didn't think he had enough. He knew it was going to be impossible for them. What he wanted Philip and Andrew to do was to come to him with what they had and say, this is it. This is all I have. I know it's not much, but I trust that you can use this, and I trust that you can take this and take whatever I have to offer, whatever amount, whatever ability, whatever talent I have, and do more than I ever could imagine. That's what he was wanting from them. That's all he wanted from his disciples. And what he wants from us is to trust God to use what we have to give. What we have to offer. See, I think many times we feel like we're that little boy in the passage. We just have 5 loaves and 2 fish. We don't have anything of significance to offer God. 5 loaves and 2 fish. I remember sharing with someone once when I first started leading worship. I read this and I read this and I prayed over this, and it comes down to I'm standing here with a wooden box with 6 strings on it. And help. Because I'm not that good a singer. I'm not that good a guitar player. God, if you'll just use this, I'll go. And I do the same thing with the Bible. I read it and I'm like, I don't understand everything, but God did. This is all I know. This is all I know, and I'll trust you that you're going to say something out of this. If we just offer, so sometimes we think we're too young to do anything. I'm too young for God to use me. Or on the other end of the spectrum, I'm too old that God would even think about using me. We feel like we don't have enough time. We don't have enough talent. We don't have enough tithe to offer God. I'm not as good as they are. I don't have as much as they do, and I can't do as much as they do. And Jesus teaches his disciples. He's teaching us. He's revealing to him and revealing to us. It's not about what we have to offer, but in whose hands we place what we have to offer. We don't keep it in ourselves. We place it in his hands. See, of all these things that I've read about this feeding the 5,000, there's this lesson that's hidden, that's buried inside of this sign that Jesus does. And it's a truth. It's a truth that I want all of us to carry out when we leave today, that we keep it and we carry it out with us as we leave today, that if you put what you have in your hands, in God's hands, he will use it in ways you'll never imagine. See, Jesus took what was given him, 5 loaves and 2 fish, and he multiplied it. He multiplied it and did not just one miracle, 20,000. See, a lot of times we focus, this is just one miracle. No, it's 20,000 miracles. Because every person ate all that they wanted. See, God wants us to place our ability, our time and our talent and our treasure in his hands. Place it inside his hands. No matter how insignificant we think it is. It's not that much. God, put it in his hands. So he can do far more than we could ever imagine. He can do far more in our community than we ever imagine. He could do far more in the world around us than we could ever imagine. And more importantly, he could do far more in our life than we could ever imagine. Jesus even told us this. In Luke chapter 6, this is what Jesus says. Verse 38, give. Place it in God's hands. This is an act of faith. This is an act of trust. Give, place it in God's hands, and it will be given to you. What? Do this, and I'll reveal to you who I am. More and more each day. Walk with me, talk with me, give. Place it in my hands. I don't care how insignificant it is. Place it in my hands, and it will be given to you. Good measure. What's good measure? Oh, it's pressed down. It's shaken together. When this is talking, it's talking about being grain poured into a bucket. And if you press it down and shake the bucket, it'll settle even more. It goes down even, and running over. Remember what I said last week when Jesus responds to us? It's out of abundance. It's filled to the brim and running over. More than enough. He always responds, more than enough. And it will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, in the way that you determine how you're going to bless someone, what you can do for someone with God's help, allowing by putting in his hands, by the way you bless others, by the measure you use, it will be measured to you. So God responds to our response. And you can never outgive God, because he's so abundant, we'll have more than enough. So let me ask you this. What impossible is God asking you to do today? What impossible is God asking you to do today? Is it your life? Are you holding on to your life and say, I've got my life 6 days of the week, but this one day I'll give it to God for one day on a Sunday morning. I really don't need to surrender anything to him the rest of the week. Why not place it all in his hands? Why not place it all in his hands? Even the circumstances, even the situations that seem impossible. I don't know if I'll ever get out of this. I don't know if this will ever get straightened out. I don't know if this will ever be cured. I don't know if this will ever be healed. I don't know if I'll ever be survive this. I don't know if I can break this addiction. Why don't we just place that in his hands and see what he will do? Because I can tell you, he will multiply it. He will do far more than we ever imagined. And he'll pour out on us and pour out on us and pour out on us. And it doesn't say he stops. It says it just keeps running, and then it just pours out into you. So it's pouring out and it's all over you. Can you imagine God being all over you? And his blessing being all, people are going to notice that. So why don't we just trust him? Just take a chance and trust him. And just give God all of our I can'ts. You know those things we use? I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't make this, I can't pay that, I can't do this, I can't serve here, I can't do that, I can't be a part. Why don't we just place all of our can'ts in his hands and then leave today with this? That with God, I can. Because with God, nothing is impossible. Nothing is impossible. I got a challenge right now. I know a family that needs a car. They can't afford it. They need a car. Maybe this is your impossible. Well, I have a car. I was thinking about selling it one day. I didn't really know. Maybe give a family a car. That's not in my notes. That's not in anything I just know this. And, I don't know. Maybe there's someone that God says, yeah, okay. You can do that. I don't know if I can. Well, give it to God. Place it in his hands. Let's see what happens. Let's pray. God, I do thank you just for the challenges that you give us. The challenges you place in our lives. We read about the 5 loaves and 2 fish. It's a fun Sunday school story. It's a great reminder of how much God cares for us, that he provides for us, even with the little bits, even the part that we think doesn't even amount to much. That God can take that and make a big difference and feed 20,000 people. That God could possibly take my life and use me sitting here in a seat, that God could use me with all the mistakes that I've made and all the failures in my life, that God could use me to impact the lives of other people, to bless the lives of other people, to bless somebody in the community, to bless somebody in my sphere of influence, the people that I work with, the people that I go to school with. That God could use me. Yes, he can. Because everyone who's following Jesus will see the signs. And they'll recognize, and Jesus will reveal himself more and more to us, more of his grace and more of his love and more of his forgiveness and more of his compassion and more of his abundant life that he's promised us. The more we walk with him, the more we see the signs in our lives. God, today I want to do that. Today I want to see the signs. I want to recognize how you're working in my life, because You've healed this part of my struggle. You've been watching over me, and now I feel it, and I've been putting it off, and I've been putting it off. I've been holding my life in my hands. Now I'm going to turn it over to you. And today, God, in this moment, while we're praying, I believe that you want to have a relationship with me, so much so that you allowed your son to die for me, and you brought him back to life. God, next week is the beginning of Passover. And I'm part of that large crowd that's following you, waiting to see something. And right now I see that you care, that you love me, and I believe that, God. So would you come into my heart, and would you change my life today so that I can walk out of this place today knowing that with God, I can do this. I can be a part of that. I can be drawn into the impossible. I can listen to your voice, and when you need me to be there and show me how to, God, I will be there. I'm not much, but God, I know you can use me, and if you will use me, God, I'm right here, so send me, use me. I want to serve you with all that I am. I want to give my life to you, and maybe that's your prayer this morning. God heard you, because like I said, he's always in and around us. We're never neglected. We're never hidden from God. He knows our every need. He knows all of our can'ts. And he can change all of them with just a touch. God, we thank you that today, as followers of Jesus, we've seen some signs. We just got to be reminded. It's not what we are, who we are, and how much we have. It's what you can do with what we place in your hands. So today, God, I don't know what they have in their hearts in here, but today, I place in your hands every ability I have, every talent that I have. I place it in your hands, and I surrender it all to you. So use me, move through me, and connect to me, and help me see more of you in my life. God, I thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's in Jesus' name we pray.